evening. Welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. I'm Leanne Lohman, joined as always by my partner, Zach Franciscus. We have a new fancy format that Zach worked on during our time off, which looks awesome. We love it. I'm getting some like very ESPN-y throwback vibes, and so I love that. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I just want to start this one off by thanking, weirdly enough, our podcast, because I know we set out to have a place that prioritized family and health over getting content out, but when the rubber hits the road and you actually have to make those calls, it matters. And I'm just grateful to be in a place that does that, where we don't push ourselves past
Yeah.
a certain point. Well, I mean, we love talking about the Steelers, we love being here with you guys, but my goodness, to be able to just know that we could come back to this was a very healthy thing. So I just wanted to make sure I started out by appreciating the healthiness of this current situation.
I think that's a really good point because, look, maybe some of our positions would have been different if it had been in the middle of the season or something, right? But we're fortunate it's the off season, which gave Zach and I a little bit of latitude to deal with like the difficult stuff that's been happening in our lives the past couple of weeks. So yeah, definitely appreciate that. Been a lot going on. I'm glad to be back. So the funny thing is today I was thinking, Zach, as was thinking about the show tonight. We were talking earlier about topics and stuff like that. I was thinking last year when we did the show during the off season, every single week we started the show, like we ended the show and we would say, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, right? And every single week we'd get on the show and be like, oh, we thought we'd have nothing to talk about. And there's so much to talk about, right? And then I think about this year, and there's so much more change. We've lost nearly our entire coaching staff, right? We have no quarterback right now. Like players are up in the air. Like, are they going to return without Mike Tomlin? Are they not going to return? Is Mike McCarthy not going to want some of these, care about some of these guys that have been a part of Pittsburgh for a while? Like, what is that all going to look like? Like, there's a lot of anxiety, but despite like all of that change, it feels like to me, like it's less, or it's harder to talk about, because what do you really say about like all the guys on Mike McCarthy's coaching staff? We're going to talk about them in a little bit, and we'll go through like, how we feel about them and all of those things. But we don't have tons of results to fall back on here, you know what I mean? Or we're not able to say like, so far this is successful or whatever. So I think that, we got a lot to talk about. So we definitely got a lot to talk about. We're definitely going to talk about whatever comes up in the chat as we go along. But let's just go ahead and get this bullshit Pittsburgh beef out of the way. I was so disappointed. I really have to tell you, like, I personally, like, I hate storylines like this because I always feel like Pittsburgh is like better than this and we should be better than this. Like, we don't do this. So Joey Porter went on the short version of the story. If you've been living under a rock, is that Joey Porter Sr. went on Cam Hayward's podcast and he made comments about Ben Roethlisberger. Now you have to remember, Porter only played with Ben in Pittsburgh for 1 year, 2 years, 1 or 2 years, not like hardly no time, right? He said he's not a good teammate, won a Super Bowl with him, but the person, he's just not a good teammate. He knows that. Anybody in the Steeler building knows that, but we protected him because I've only won 1 Super Bowl, and that was my quarterback. So I don't love my quarterback? Yeah, but is he a good person? No. So then it kind of escalated from there. And then James Harrison spoke up about it, like on his podcast, like on the Debo and whoever who's he doing that podcast with?
That's not Ryan Clark. Oh, Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden. Right. So him on the Debo and Joe podcast, he gets on there and he says, Harrison didn't agree with that. He said, he talked about it. He said that Porter broke like brotherhood bro code for like how players handle these things. He said, you broke the brotherhood bro more than we did. You didn't even play under Mike, meaning Tomlin, because he also said some comments about Mike. You won a championship with Ben. You said it yourself. Me and Joey talked, and we talked again. I hung up on my boy and I said, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And right there, Joey has a personal issue with Ben. He was the rabbit with the gun. He took his shot because he doesn't see Ben and his brother. He said 7, meaning Roethlisberger, could be an a-hole. That's facts. When Ben came in, this man went 13-1 as a rookie. In his second season, he won a Super Bowl, the youngest quarterback to ever do it. That's when 7 was born, Harrison said. He became the youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Hell yeah, that's going to stroke my ego and give me delusions of grandeur. But over time, he's matured and grown up, and I don't think you value the same things at 23 that you do at 30. And look, all I can say is that's been my like lifelong stance on Ben Roethlisberger. Like, hand any, and I'm, look, I don't like to divide things between men and women, but it's men playing in the National Football League. So, hand any 22, 21, 23-year-old kid, the keys to the kingdom, all of this money, and any kid on the street, right? What Roethlisberger got that rookie year, and they're going to make bad decisions. Every 21-year-old man I've ever known in my life has made bad decisions. But the difference is he isn't leading a football team in the NFL on the primetime stage with all eyes on him. If you have this like incredible rookie season, and he made a lot of really crappy choices. We all did when we were kids. Your brain isn't fully developed at 23. So there was no expectation for Ben to make perfect decisions. And he grew up. Was he a good guy then? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Did he grow and evolve? It seems like it. Is he maybe a little bit of an arrogant asshole? Sure, but aren't lots of people?
Yeah, I think for Steeler fans, we all like to imagine the Super Bowl years as this family that had no problems with each other, and they were over at Jerome Bettis's mom's house every single night eating dinner, not just Super Bowl night, and there were no problems. And we all hold on to the Jerome Bettis and the Ben Roethlisberger game ball thing and the playoffs and all the little stories that we hold
Yeah.
on to. You don't have to like each other to be great. The Beach Boys fucking hated each other. The Beach Boys would come to their concerts in different vehicles.
That's a good, right.
And then performed incredible music. You don't have to. So
yeah.
My only issue with this is I do agree with what you said at the beginning. This is not how we do it. We're
right.
the Cowboys. We are not the Raiders. You don't air this out there. If you have an issue, yeah, hash it out behind closed doors. But it's just I think a lot of people are upset that they're having to see a real part of the NFL they don't like admitting is there.
Well, I mean, no, look, and I think you're right. And Nathan says the same thing. Former players should work things out behind closed doors. Media makes players too comfortable nowadays. What was more concerning is that Cam didn't shut him down quickly. I'm assuming he meant didn't shit him down. He meant shut him down because I would hate for Cam Hayward to shit on anybody. But I was going to ask you about that. Like, I thought it was interesting too that Cam, like, I don't know, like, what does Cam do, right? Like, what do you do? Like, if this is Joey Porter Sr.'s truth, right? Cam wasn't there necessarily during all of that, right? So Cam wasn't there during that. He was not on the team yet. So how can Cam say like that's not accurate or that's, you know what I mean? I could understand if Cam said like, maybe, man, this is the place to air that. But then what does Cam look like to all the Steeler fans that are watching when he's like shutting down a conversation on his show? Cam clearly has aspirations to go into media when he's done with playing, right? And so is he already setting the table? I mean, he could be retired already and we don't know it. Maybe he's already made that decision. Is he setting the table that I'm this impartial person?
I think he's setting the table for. I'm not surprised that he didn't. For anyone who didn't notice, Cam decided that he was going to post a cryptic thing of a anime book closing with no explanation. So of course this is not outside the realm for what Cam is going to do. But when that happened, I thought about, okay, what if it happened on our podcast? It's live, stuff happens, and in that situation, my first thought might be, my goodness gracious, a lot of people are going to watch this. That honestly, in that situation, my very first thought. So I'm like, I ain't touching the thing. This is an adult's choice to say words that they are going to accept the consequences for, and this is just the medium they're choosing to do it.
Yeah,
it's football. It's not something like life or death. So there's different, but this, I'm not surprised Cam did. Now, it might also have something to do with maybe it's a hierarchy. Defensive guys, Joey Porter is considered a senior dog in that. And maybe Cam didn't feel like he could specifically tell Joey to say nothing. I don't know what's going on there, but it didn't surprise me that he didn't say anything.
Well, I mean, like literally Joey is like the dad of his coworker, right? If you want to really like be real about this, Joey Porter Sr. is the dad of Cam Hayward's coworker. So you tell me, like,
Well,
your
yeah.
coworker's mom shows up, are you gonna like, I don't know. Like, I just think the whole thing is just, I agree with the very first part of what Nathan said. I think that this shit should be handled behind closed doors, right? I just think that's the professional thing to do. If I want to sit here privately and have a conversation with you and tell you horror stories about things that I dealt with when I was in the school system, right? I could tell you some stories. I could tell you some
Oh, yeah.
specific stories about some specific people that shouldn't have specific jobs. But what I'm not doing is I'm not going on some education related podcast and using people's names, especially people that, when Ben is at least retired now. So this isn't like this is something that's impacting his career. I think this is a lot worse when you see it happen in the NFL and it's a player that's still playing, right? And they're going to talk shit about each other. I think it's a lot worse. But I think that this has been this divide for years, right? Like I think these early guys that played with Ben, I think he was kind of a jerk. I think I don't know that he was real respectful of like the Pittsburgh like legacy and the veteran process. I think he thought he was big time. And I think he probably rubbed some guys like Porter the wrong way.
And while this may have seemed like it came out of nowhere, it really seemed like he had this holster just ready to go, because it wasn't like, oh, by the way, the story. He was like, oh, okay, well, we're going there. Well, look what I have had saved for a little bit. That's what it felt like. And
Well, then don't you kind
I
of
would never.
wonder, did something happen? Like, the first thing I wondered was, like, what did Ben do recently to piss off Joey Porter Sr.? Did he refuse
Right.
to help younger Joey Porter with something? Did he refuse to participate in something that Senior wanted him to do? Do you know what I mean? Like, did he not show up for his barbecue last year? Like, did he do something to make
Um.
him mad that you feel the need to, like, because he's kind of that guy. Like, he was that guy as a player where he would pop off at the mouth about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Sort of like a George Pickens, or somebody's going to run their mouth when they're agitated. When he played, he was that guy that would like pop off at the mouth. He would say anything to anyone.
That's true. Now, if anyone in the chat knows, and you can check me on this. Well, I was looking into this before we came on. I only skimmed it, but I'm paraphrasing here. There's something about not signing a jersey for somebody. That is something to do with it, where Ben didn't sign a jersey for a nephew or a cousin or something like that, and that snowballed. I think either and the whole Zach Banner response to it, that got wrapped up in it, and I saw that. So I don't know how true that is, but I do believe that the Joey Porter Steelers relationship, while he is rah rah Steelers way, this is how we do it, it's been slowly eroding. The I got released by the Steelers, the my son wasn't drafted in the first round, and yeah, first pick of the second round, sure, but I think there's been a little animosity that he hasn't admitted to. And this was his way of being able to vent it while not directing it to the franchise, directing it to someone who is a face of a franchise. That's what it felt like to me.
I think, look, I think there's a lot of passion about, like with these teams, right? And so the players are passionate about all of it. I think people get frustrated. They have strong feelings about it. Nathan said it feels like of late, former Steelers are at a divide against coaches and former players. As Ryan Clark said, they should have Steeler therapy. I mean, they need to do something. I choose to like presume positive intentions, that everybody just feels passionate about whatever their niche is or their stance or their part of Steelers history and lore. And maybe they don't quite know how to manage or handle that. I don't know, but I'm not a fan of this. I think it's messy and sloppy. It makes me not quite respect Porter Sr. as much. I've always been he's always been a favorite of mine. And I feel like that's just kind of a crap thing to do. I think if you have an issue with Ben, go on his podcast. And I'd have a lot more respect for it if you went on Ben's podcast and said, man, I've waited till we were both out of the league and I want to address some concerns I had with the way you were as a leader on our team, when we played together for those 2 years or whatever it was. Like that, I would have respect for. Like, go talk to the man face to face.
And Ben would allow it. Ben would love. And can you imagine the views that would get if they both decided to hash it out there? I mean, it's positives all around. So
Yeah.
this is just we're not going to remember this in like 6 months, but at the moment, it's an off-season beef that could not come at the more perfect time. We just entered the off-season. Sure, give us some drama.
Right. And distract, by the way, distract from all the other stuff that's going on that, fans are thinking about, right? So Nathan says maybe something happened when Porter was coaching. It's possible. I mean, look, frankly, Porter spent a lot of time with the team in recent years. I mean, he coached and then, he was there helping out. Now his kid, I mean, he's there, kind of all the time. And so, yeah, I think that it's, any of those things are possible.
So apparently, Roethlisberger in 2004 during his rookie season, and this is a paraphrasing that Joey Porter had said, he was too cool to sign jersey or memorabilia for the older teammates' families.
Oh, come on.
I know. If that's number one, that's his rookie year. You've held on to this for what, 21 years, 22 years now?
Out, dude.
You're an adult. And number one, a millionaire adult with another son in the NFL, and this is, it seems juvenile.
It just feels like that's petty, and that feels like something to me. Like I find it hard to believe that other people, haven't shunned him or refused to sign stuff, right? It's like that's going to be really the thing that you're going to hold a grudge over all these years. Like enough of a grudge that you're going to go on a podcast and talk about somebody. On the other hand, stop. What is your problem, Bentley? Stop.
He's getting really excited about the beef.
He's got a lot to say about it. He's a big Ben Roethlisberger fan. Is a jersey and everything. Lee Trevino once was rude to my grandmother like decades ago, and I still haven't forgiven him, and he's 86. So maybe I'm cut from the same cloth as Joey Porter, and I just didn't know it. So.
And I feel like there was I don't know if it was like a tremor or something happened with the Mike Tomlin stepping away. I think a lot of the older group weren't ready for that. And in their minds, that signaled, okay, that era is really done.
Yeah.
And for a lot of guys who functioned in that kind of system where mental health isn't always at the top of the list of what that's a lot of undealt with stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know that football players say the number one thing that's the hardest about retiring is what do you do? And that gets to people. So
and you look at a guy like let's say like a Zach Banner, since you brought him up, right? And you think you've got this whole career stretched out in front of you, right? And then or a Ryan Shazier, like an even a more extreme circumstance, right? And you've got this whole career stretched out in front of you, and then something happens, right? Luke Kuechly, you decide to walk away early or whatever it is. And you feel like, now you've got this whole life ahead of you. And maybe you have enough money that you're set for life if you're a Ben Roethlisberger or a Luke Kuechly probably, but maybe you're a Zach Banner and you don't, and then what do you do? And I do think it's an issue. I think it's an area where the NFL, is made strides in the past several years, but where they still really do let players down. I feel like the young players are ill prepared to deal with the fame and the freedom that you have. Like I know, like just from like Alabama, like the handlers that are there to work with these young guys, to make sure to try to keep them, in check as much as possible. There's all these checks and balances in place to keep these guys out of trouble. And you see it time and time again with players. It's like almost every year there's some rookie that goes off the deep end that wrecks his car, races, or is speeding, or, gets shot or gets, involved in something else that's going on. There's always some kind of immature behavior that happens. And then I think there's more that we don't even see, like the money spending and, you're not long-term planning for your future, and all of these things. You're spending Deion Sanders money, but you're not making Deion Sanders money yet.
And this is something that not just with football players, but with celebrities in general, that has always frustrated me since I was little. And I really shouldn't have been as self-aware about this but the maintenance of upkeeping the lifestyle of being famous means you have to keep making that money, because there's
Mhm.
almost an expectation. If you're a football player at this level, you got to have this car, you have to look the part. And if you don't look the part, you won't be taken seriously. You won't get the marketing things, you won't get et cetera. It won't lead to more. So you can't ever actually stop. And I guarantee, I'm going to sound like the old guy in the porch, but in this modern area, but it has to have gotten worse. Where there's so many more different ways to make things that I imagine a football player's life is pretty much a bunch of phones in his face. Okay, say this for TikTok. Okay, say this for this radio station. Say this for that, and then you play football. That's pretty much to me the life of a football player.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, I mean, like even like in our lifetime, right? So not that I remember, but that I heard, and that like the guys that played in the 70s, they had other jobs. I mean, you had Terry Bradshaw as like the star quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, by the time he was winning Super Bowls, probably not, but before that, he was out selling peanut butter during the off season and like insurance and stuff like that. I mean, these guys had to have other jobs to be able to make ends meet. You look at the families of those players, look at Mike Webster's family, right? They
Oh
weren't
yeah.
set with generational wealth, for life. Like, I mean, Garrett Wilson, Mike's son, does a phenomenal job keeping his memory alive on Twitter. But
Oh
that
yeah.
family, that by today's standards, like that, Garrett would have been set, his kids would have been set. You know what I mean? He was the Jason Kelsey of the 70s. And yeah, I mean, that's just not something that happened then. And so, I mean, just in 50 years, how much has changed in football, like the money, and how much the money has changed in football, over these decades is crazy to me. And I think you're right. You have people that are famous from doing podcasts, people who are influencers, people who make money this way, right? So that this visual of like money and this idea of like one upping and the Joneses and all of that, is hard to keep up. It's got to be hard to keep up with.
It really is. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's the off season, so of course it's exaggerated, but my goodness gracious. And I guarantee as we go through the season, the old guard are gonna get more persnickety and cantankerous about things, because this isn't
Yeah.
gonna be the same Mike Tomlin kind of Steelers. It's gonna be a different team. They're gonna have certain different attitudes about things, different approaches that not a lot of people are gonna like from that old group. So this is not the last we will hear of someone complaining from that group.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about McCarthy's staff. I don't want to spend like an hour on this because I just, what are we really going to say about guys that have left a totally different position and moved up and been promoted? Like I said earlier, we don't have results. We don't have specific players. We don't even know who's going to be on the team. Right. But let's talk about this roster. I know you've got it there. Do you want to read the whole roster? Do you want to, I mean, that's a lot of people. Do you want to tell me, was there anybody who really surprised you? Anybody that really
The
stands out to you?
I know I said it earlier, but I'll reiterate it in this episode as well. Don't overlook the importance of keeping Tom Arth. Not just because we might bring Aaron Rodgers or something like that back, but I think they saw something in him that says, okay, if we had the right things around you, you're going to be able to help this quarterback. And Mike McCarthy is considered one of the quarterback whispering coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means he put a lot of thought into who he was going to keep there.
Yeah.
That surprised me. I legitimately thought we were going to get another young guy, another creative guy, but no, Tom Arth is there. So I'm going to keep my eye on how Will Howard progresses if we draft a quarterback, how they progress. That I'm going to keep my eye on that specifically because Tom
Yeah.
Arth is there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting one. I was surprised we kept him too. I think it's like you, I felt like it must speak highly to his capabilities and like the projection they see for him in the NFL as like a young, bright, up and coming coach. Do you know what I mean? That they have that much faith in him that I feel like seriously, one of the most critical positions for the Steelers, right? Like we can go in a couple different ways with this. We could talk about this real quickly, but look, the Steelers could bring back Aaron Rodgers for a year. The Steelers could promote Mason Rudolph. The Steelers could take a chance with Will Howard, which I know is what a lot of fans want. They could go a totally different direction and bring in, trade for somebody, bring in a free agent, could draft somebody like Ty Simpson, which despite wearing my Bama gear, I don't know that I think the first round, I feel like that's just like a redo of Kenny Pickett, like rinse and repeat, like the same reach. I think that there's a really good chance that Ty Simpson could come into the NFL, land in the right spot, and do better than people expect him to do. I think that he was sick at the end of last season. I think a lot of people don't realize this, and they just see this like decline that he had at the end of the season at Bama, but he got sick and he lost a bunch of weight and he was still playing and he just wasn't well. So is that why he struggled? Maybe. Is it that he just struggled? Maybe. And I think it's hard to say. I don't think he's a great quarterback. So I think it'll be interesting to see like what they choose to do there. So I thought it was very telling that not even knowing who you're going to have at quarterback, you're still willing to bring back Tom Arth, and that means something.
It does. Now, an interesting approach of there's a couple people I think are already on the hot seat before they begin because the expectations are going to be higher than and Adam Henry, the wide receivers coach.
Yeah.
How long has it been since we have had a wide receiver group that we're like, yeah, we're good. We can attack NFL defenses with this. And a large part of that is going to be bringing the right guys in, but it's also about what Adam Henry can do from a coaching perspective.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of people watching him. But the other guy that I'm looking at that has to prove why he got this specific job is Domata Peko. The former Cincinnati Bengals defensive lineman, very, very shortly removed. I think only 1 or 2 years removed from playing.
Yeah.
And I think a reason that the Steelers brought him on, not just because of the X's and O's that he brings, but because once Cameron Hayward is gone, which we don't even know if he's coming back this season yet, it's a young group on that defensive line. A lot of young, hungry guys. I mean, goodness, a little bit ago, if you were told me Keanu Benton was one of the leaders of the pack in that defensive thing, I would have told you you're insane.
Yeah, like most veterans.
And he's there. Yeah, and so being able to bring him in and maybe relate a little more than some of the older guys, that's a newer approach to that. But that's a really talented defensive line. And I don't think, even as good as they were, I don't think they lived up to expectations last year, and they all know that. So they're going to have to one up at this time. If that defensive line gets gutted again and we get run on again and they can't get into their gaps, there's a new coach sitting right there to scapegoat. And he has to know that. So a lot of pressure, I think, is going to be on Peko.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Nathan asked, what would you feel about trading for Kyler Murray?
The biggest thing that I don't like about this is that when we got Russell Wilson, everyone was like, he's never going to see over the offensive line. And we actually saw that hamper his ability to throw across the middle of the field. And Kyler Murray there's not enough. I don't like making short jokes. He's short. He's a very short NFL quarterback, and he relies on getting outside of the pocket. And right now, if you're relying on Broderick Jones or a young Troy Fautanu to be able to hold up and let you do that it's intriguing. If it was Madden, I would absolutely do it and see what I would do. This is not Madden. I need a tall quarterback. I need a quarterback who can see over the middle of the field and throw to it, and that's not Kyler.
Did you feel like we finally saw that like height kind of be something that was like an advantage or came to fruition with Aaron Rodgers last year? Like I felt like finally we were back to spread that ball out in a way that we hadn't done in a long time.
Oh yeah, if you take away all the times where Aaron Rodgers decided that because of the line in front of him he was going to play hero ball, there was a lot of really solid middle of the field passing. Not as much as we liked, but that was because of the protection and Aaron Rodgers and the amount of things that went into that, but a lot more than expected. And it's I don't want to say double, but maybe go up by about 30% attacking the middle of the field coming up. And that doesn't happen if you don't have a quarterback that can, at the bare minimum, see the middle of the field. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
I think it's a fair point. I mean, I think it's a really fair point. I think there's some interesting guys out there. Do you know what I mean? I think, look, I feel like anytime you switch quarterbacks or you have to pick up a new quarterback, there's like a risk involved in that, right? There's no such thing as a sure thing. I don't care if it's the first overall pick in the draft. Like we've seen those guys. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has done fuck all. Do you know what I mean? I know he's improving and I know there's other issues, right? And maybe he'd be better somewhere else. But look, it's not a guaranteed fix, right? The Steelers have other issues, not just quarterback. So that's not an easy like solution to me. I felt like if we had an offense in place that really suited Kyler Murray's style, like a successful offense in place that suited him, then maybe it would make sense to bring somebody like him in. But I don't know. I think that quarterback piece is. I guess what's hard for me is I feel like I don't really know what the vision of this team is, right? Like my gut tells me the Steelers are always a team that are going to make themselves be contenders, even if they're not really ready, right? We're not ever going to be like some other teams where we say we know we're rebuilding or, we're just trying to get guys playing time. We're not going to ever do that. We're always going to act like we're going after the Super Bowl. And so with that being the case, then it feels like it's really, you have to judge from that basis, right? As a fan, when you're watching and things go south, you judge from that position too, right? Your answer is going to be much different if McCarthy or Tomlin, or whoever was a coach, comes out and says, look, we know we're rebuilding. Well, you're going to be a different kind of critical than a team that says we're trying to make the Super Bowl. And I don't know. I don't feel like I have any idea. I mean, obviously your goal is always Super Bowl, but does McCarthy think this is something that's realistic this year, even a playoff win?
I think behind closed doors, what they're saying is it's win a playoff game or bust. It's not Super Bowl or bust or all that. If we get halfway through the season, we're like, wait a second, we're competent on both sides. Yeah. We're building, we're healthy. We'll go from there. But if Mike McCarthy doesn't win a playoff game in his first year, I could probably see them going, yeah, no, we're good. Yeah. Because they're getting they're getting good at being able to move on from coaches at the right time, and they didn't fight Tomlin when that happened.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee if they really wanted to keep Tomlin, they probably would have found a way to do it. But it was mutual on both sides for that. So
seems like
McCarthy has to win a playoff game.
Yeah, it seems like it. All right, let's switch to these way too early 2026 predictions. My first one is I think Aaron Rodgers is coming back. That's my very first one. My very first way too early prediction is that we will see Aaron Rodgers in black and gold for another season. I just think it makes sense. I'm not. What doesn't matter whether I like it or not. I just think it's what's happening.
Unless we go out and spend a ridiculous amount on a quarterback, I'm not really sure there's a bad option at quarterback here, and a lot of people are going to be really upset. We're not a quarterback away, so try things out. I mean, what do we have to lose?
The one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to ruin Will Howard, right? So like and I don't know that this is true, but so like if McCarthy is really the quarterback whisperer, and if McCarthy really believes that Will Howard is a quarterback who has the potential, what it takes to be good in the NFL, right? If he believes that, I would trust his judgment. Then I would not want to throw Will Howard to the wolves and ruin him like right off the bat week one if he's not ready. Does that make sense? That's the only thing I don't want. Like, I agree with you. We have nothing to lose. It doesn't matter. If you're not sure about Will Howard and you think you have to put him out there to test him, then you put him out there to test him. But if you know he's not ready, then I wouldn't want to force him.
And actually, what you said about the coaching staff can be translated directly to what we know about Will Howard. Because while press conferences and interviews, everyone might say, "Oh, I love Will Howard." What have we got behind closed doors? Like, we have no idea who the fuck Will Howard is.
No,
like, he's a hype guy.
Will Howard based off some tape from 2 years ago in college.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for him. He seems like a fun guy. I would love the connection between him and Jack Sawyer. There's so many 100%. Good storylines that can happen. But he's a really late round quarterback, and every time you say that, there's someone in the chat. Yeah, Tom Brady. I'm like, that doesn't count. You can't bring that up every time. So
you can't bring that up every year because since Tom Brady, there's never been another Tom Brady, right? And I would argue that Brock Purdy is not that guy. He is not Tom Brady. Tom Brady literally put teams on his back and carried them across the finish line. You can love him, hate him, whatever you think about him and all of his cheating, but the reality is that he was that guy. He had that potential. Brock Purdy has really good people surrounding him, weapons, coaches, a system built just for him that he works in. I'm not knocking what he's doing out in San Francisco, but he's not Tom Brady.
And so let's just say Aaron Rodgers does come back, and there's positives and negatives to it. But I think a really big positive that not enough people are talking about is that Aaron Rodgers knows directly what Will Howard needs to do to get better because he did it. He can sit there and say, I didn't start immediately. I was not drafted where I wanted to be. I had to come in. I had to sit behind a Hall of Fame player who I wish I would never get in front of.
Who
And
was an
and
asshole to me, by the
because
way.
of that,
Yeah.
what?
Who was an asshole to him too, by the way. Like Brett Favre was
Yes.
not nice to him. I mean, you talk about
No,
Ben and Mason. I mean,
yeah, so if this is a guy who could come in and say, "Listen, you don't have to start right now. Ignore the noise from outside. The if will to stuff. When you're ready to start, what a great influence to be around from a guy who can experience. Say, listen, I am going to have a Hall of Fame career when this is said and done, and here's how I started. And you want to look at how to do that with quarterbacks. Look at Green Bay; they did that with every quarterback since Favre.
yeah.
It's bring a guy in, sit them for a little bit, no matter what anyone says, then play them later. So I hope we do that with him.
I
So
hope so
I
too,
like
and
that.
I hope
Now
it works out. Like you, I like the kid. I hope it works out, and that's why I don't really want to like jam him in too soon and ruin it. So hit us with one of your predictions, Zach.
okay. Well, we'll start with my bright side predictions, and that is DK Metcalf surpasses 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, regardless of quarterback
Ooh,
play.
ooh, I love that. I
I
love that.
like him getting back to that because I truly believe that when it's all said and done, while we might not have the superstar wide receiver group everyone hopes we have, we're going to have a group that knows what they're doing. Everyone has a role. There's a reason you're here. It's not just DK Metcalf and a bunch of guys, and that's what he needs. Because the amount of pressure that was on DK Metcalf to be everything last year was ridiculous. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping for 1,210.
yeah.
That's what I'm hoping.
I think the Steelers are going to have a weird season this year. This is my second prediction, and I think we're going to win a playoff game. I think we're going to win our first playoff game under Mike McCarthy. I think the fan base is going to lose their ever loving minds. And I think they're going to have ridiculous expectations going into 2027. And we'll see.
Okay, well, my next prediction, I'm going to throw some stats out before I get into that. The 2025 offense was 25th in total offense, 22nd in passing, 26th in rushing, and 15th in scoring. The defense was 26th in total defense, 29th in passing, 13th in rushing, 17th in scoring. I predict that we're going to finish top 10 in both.
Ooh, I like that. These are good ones.
Yes. So no, I'm not saying we're going to blow the world out of the water. I'm saying top 10 in both, meaning even at 10
Yeah.
is fine. That's enough to get the playoff game that you just said.
But that's
So
the thing.
those are my bright. Those are my bright sides.
You just got to get better. You just got to keep getting better, right? That's the goal. You just keep getting better.
Exactly. So what's another one of your predictions?
I'm struggling with this one because I just look, I got like a little list in my heart of players that I just don't think are going to be back this year. And I think there's going to be some really sad fans. I don't even want to name a name because I don't like to put stuff out into the ether, but I think it's going to be hard. I think some players will stay, but I think we'll lose some players. And I think some of the losses are going to be tough ones. I don't think the fan base is not been through, like, a lot of this fan base has not been through like a coach change like this, a rebuilding year like this. And I think you brought it up on the show before, how hard it can be, how much change comes with this. And I think that a lot of fans are underestimating that.
That's true. And this is why we're on a podcast of the great minds, because one of my negative realistic ones is that, and I'm going to do what Leanne did, and I'm going to say some names, even though I don't want to put it out there because I cannot. One of these players will be on a different team when the 2026 season kicks off. TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, Cameron Hayward.
Yeah, I'd add Alex Highsmith to that list.
I didn't want to because even that hurt my soul. I couldn't even put him on the list. It hurt that bad.
I know, because really my list is going to be like Watt, Highsmith. You know what I mean? Like one of those guys, I think one of them will be gone. I hate it. I love them both, and I don't want to see either leave. I hope I'm way off base.
I hope so too. So I want to do a quick palate cleanse with that because my last positive one is that the Steelers finally get the first round receiver we've all been hoping for to pair with DK. We do
Yeah.
it, first round receiver. Bunch of guys out there that we'll like that we'll get into as we get deeper
Yeah.
into the off. But my goodness, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So, do,
So
do
watch
you have
the
anything
show.
else?
Do us a favor and hit us with what your way too early 2026 predictions are in the comments, or hit us up on Twitter. We want to definitely hear those. So let us
Oh,
know.
we definitely do.
Yeah. Let me ask you a draft question while we're here on the way too early predictions. So look, anytime anything happens in the NFL, a player, like, this is the time of year where like crappy players are getting released, or like over the hill players are getting released. So immediately Tyreek Hill gets released by the Dolphins, and immediately it's like the Steelers will sign Tyreek Hill. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, nobody believes that, right? No interest in Tyreek Hill, right?
No. There's no way. It's way too much baggage. And
Yeah.
come on, a guy whose entire thing is speed, coming off yet another injury, and a devastating one at
And a
that.
really bad, and he's old.
The only reason that when that came up, something popped in my head, like, I don't want him, but McCarthy has a history of not minding diva receivers on his team. That's the
Yeah.
opposite. I don't want to put it out there, but I will say this: if we get him, I'm gonna convince myself that he's healthy, he is fast again, and he's young. But I don't want him anywhere near us.
You know me. If he joins, if he's wearing black and gold, I'm going to cheer for him. But yeah, I'm definitely not excited about that. Okay, so the next thing that's like constantly coming up in these articles that I'm editing is every mock draft in the universe has the Steelers taking Ty Simpson, you know, in the first round. And we brought it up real quickly earlier, but I just wanted to talk about it for a minute and just ask your opinion. Do you feel like, does that to you feel like it does to me, like where it's that same like Kenny Pickett reach all over again?
That would it would be even worse, because that meant we didn't learn from the Kenny Pickett reach. I mean, that would be, and especially that would mean that you're ignoring glaring holes and a wide receiver again. And there's what I'm not a draft expert, so I'm saying based on what I have seen, I think this draft class turned into for wide receivers what people thought it would be for quarterbacks. I think everyone said this is the quarterback class for, and then it is a weak quarterback class. It is. Even with Chambliss being most likely going in the draft doesn't help at all. But the wide receivers, polished route runners, tall guys, big. Makai Lemon. If we get him from USC, I will. I know I won't be able to, but I will find a way to learn how to backflip. I just will. There's so many more better options.
Right. Please don't hurt yourself, and please do that on the show.
Exactly. If I'm going to, yeah, but no. The number one, if we're gonna draft a quarterback anywhere near the first round, it shouldn't be Ty Simpson. But we shouldn't draft. That shouldn't be on the board. It should be a joke in the Steelers draft where they're like, "Hey guys, we're drafting the quarterback in the first round," and everyone laughs, and then they go to the actual.
Like, that's
what I want it to be.
Right. Psych.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so, and I guess that does kind of like lead us into like our off-season goals, but I was just thinking about that a lot because it just feels like it's this like media narrative where, you know, or I try to like look at it and figure out how they arrive there. Like, is it this media narrative that, you know, you want to promote, you know, something controversial to a team, right? So if you say this and you get a click or somebody reads your article or whatever it is. But then I think the other thing is I just feel like people take like the easy way out in some of these mock drafts. Are like, oh, you know, I don't really know anything about the Steelers or this team or that team, but, you know, the Steelers really need a quarterback. They don't have one. So Ty Simpson's available. So we'll just slot him in and move on, right? And you're really ignoring like all these other needs that the team has that they really need to address, like wide receiver, safety, and things like that we need to be looking at and not worrying about all that other stuff. So what are some of your off-season goals for the team?
Well, before we get to that really quick, I'll wrap up because I had two more really quick.
Yes,
and I'm going to wrap it up with a positive because neither of these I like. The biggest one, and I'm not going to like this at all when it happens, I think the Steelers are going to accept Roderick Jones' fifth-year option. I don't know why. Something in the deep core of my soul says we're going to think we can save this kid. So I'm just preparing myself. I'm not happy about it, and the other thing, and this is, I added this one last minute, but I'm keep looking at it, and this might be the most realistic one I got on there. The Steelers will have 3 quarterbacks start games by the end of the 2026 season.
Ooh. Ooh.
I just looked at it, I'm like, I can see that and not being a bad thing because that is. But then I decided to do a wildly unrealistic take that I don't think it's going to happen. But if it does, everyone remember where you heard it. Steelers use their trove of draft picks to get a second pick in the first round and bring a first round wide receiver and a first round safety to Pittsburgh.
Ooh, that would make me very happy. I like that.
So that was
that's
my
an instant upgrade right there, right? Why not use some of those later draft picks on a sure thing?
Exactly. So now off-season goals, you mean for the Steelers, not for the podcast, correct?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. The biggest thing is prove why you overhauled the strength and conditioning team.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen. I didn't know a lot about strength and conditioning until a couple years ago when they started hurting everyone that we needed them to not hurt. So right. I don't want to hear their names about that. I need to know that that was for a purpose because I think this is the second or third year we've overhauled that, and maybe with a new coaching staff that'll matter this time, because I don't want to have to deal with soft tissue injuries again or hear the word sled ever again.
Yeah, well, because they overhauled it after they killed Russell Wilson with the sled. And then we overhauled it again. And then I thought injuries were better last year. Like I felt like as the year went on, like I was surprised. Like, look, Aaron Rodgers didn't get substantially hurt. And so that to me felt like so huge that it felt like there weren't that many like bad injuries like there had been other years. So yeah, I agree with you. I would like to see that translate to a reduction in injury. Do you know what I mean? A reduction in those soft tissue injuries we kept hearing about. And to see the guys like look better conditioned. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a strength and conditioning expert, but it just didn't feel like those guys had the same zip that they've had in other seasons. Correct. Yeah.
Well, for my next goal, I will use a business term. It's efficient expediency.
Ooh.
I want this season to move at a speed that the rest of the NFL moves at. Because you got to say, especially last year, felt like we were multiple steps behind all the teams that were doing things we wanted to do. And this year seemed we started out ahead. We're like, oh, that's our coach we want. Move on him, get him. Do that with everything. With Aaron Rodgers, say, listen, we need to kind of know we got other things we got to do. Move it quick. No off-season wedding plans or anything like that.
Right.
But expediency without sacrificing the efficiency. I need to see that because I want to see, especially with the new coaching staff, a new system, all this stuff. We have to be ready ahead of time. So we have to be early to this preseason, off-season stuff. We have to have everything incorporated well before the draft. That's what I'm really hoping for. I want to see that come into play quickly as we go along.
Yeah. One of my big goals, I think, is to see and feel things look really differently. I was thinking back to when Omar Khan took over for Kevin Colbert and everybody was like, this is just going to be more of the same old, right? Like he is Colbert part 2 or, Colbert Jr. or whatever. And it's just going to be the same. And then it was just so drastically different. Every year it's gotten more further and further away from how Colbert did things, right? We had that first draft and we were like, holy shit, he's not Kevin Colbert. And everybody was glad. And I'm not saying that all of his draft picks were hits, right? I'm just saying that the way in which we approached the draft was different under him. So I'm hoping that one of our off-season goals this year is that things really just look differently, right? If we needed to have this new coach, if we needed all these things to change, then I want to see that translate to something tangible that we see come up during, preseason planning, during the, training camp. Do you know what I mean? I'm not talking about format or little silly things you see or what time they practice or whatever, but I'm talking about, changes into the way we're seeing, guys being utilized and things that make sense, the coaching staff making like data-driven decisions that make sense.
I like that. And while we did bring in DK Metcalf, we have big money, all that, I want us to continue that trend of not forgetting we have money to spend. We have 44 million in change right now. We're going to release Jonnu Smith, which is going to bring us, I think, it's a good deal of money. We're going to be well over 50 million available. So when free agency starts, already know that wide receiver you want and bring him in quickly.
Yeah.
That another thing that I'm looking for. So don't forget that you can spend that money because we're going to need replacements. I don't think we're going to keep Gainwell. I thought we were, but a lot of the talk around the NFL is that we're not going to. So I'm preparing
Yeah.
myself. And if we're not, we need another Gainwell because team
Yeah.
MVP. We know the type of player. So just spend money, keep spending. I like that.
I was surprised there was so much chatter around him not coming back, but we'll see. It'll be interesting
I
to see.
know. I think it was only like $6 million they expect him to cost, and apparently that's too much. But we
Well, they
weren't
wouldn't
willing to
pay
pay what
Najee
$5 million a year
or
for. Thank
whatever.
you.
So I guess
They
we're not
did
going to
not.
gain well either.
Goodness gracious. So
All right.
what another goal that you see?
Well, that was my big goal. That was my big goal, was to really just
I
see
like
things
that.
look different and to see like them making decisions. Like I know that there's some part of football that's like a faith process, right? You have a quarterback or a wide receiver, they have a bad game. You're not going to immediately bench him and move on because the data shows that wasn't successful today. But I felt like one of the Tomlin specials that a lot of the fans complained about was that he made these kind of emotional decisions, do you know what I mean? Or stuck with players longer than he should have, or things like that. So I don't want to turn into the Washington Commanders and we're dropping guys and benching them every 2 seconds. But I also don't want to see us hang up. I don't even mean players. I just mean even plays that aren't working, or the fact that you're going to like run pass, like you know what I mean? There's things that felt like they were so predictable with what was happening with the team. I'd like to see those things change. And so that's like really my big offseason goal, is just for things to look different.
I like, and that's right in line with my last offseason goal for the Steelers. Is I want for the coaching staff, when they sit down and talk about the game plan they're going to implement, I want them to use a little mantra. It's right call, right player, right time. Because they couldn't get all three of those there. It was the right
Yeah.
call and the right time, but the wrong player,
Yeah.
and I need to see all of them lining up. And I think that's a simple way. So if the coaches do that, then I'll be happy. So it has to look different. We have to look like an NFL team right off the bat.
Yeah, you should patent that and then send that to McCarthy. I'm sure he'll want to can use that, put it up on the screen during one of the team meetings, right? I like it.
That'd be so cool.
I would be very
So
cool. That would be very cool indeed. Well, we've got some off-season kind of plans of our own. Zach and I have been batting around the kind of things that we want to do this season during the off-season. Last year during the off-season, we did a position every week where we talked about, for example, like tight ends this week, and then we were going to talk about who we realistically thought was going to return, like who wouldn't, who was too expensive. Did somebody need a contract restructured? Like we talked about the wide receivers. They all look the same. Do we need to bring in somebody different? So we'll be doing some of that again this year, where we talk about positional groups and kind of the state of the union of those positional groups, was how we phrased it last year. But we're also going to get into some mock draft stuff, some free agency stuff. We've got some fun things planned for you guys for the rest of this offseason. We're excited to kind of get it going. Maybe look into some games, fun Steelers related, even some trivia games, and try to keep it something a little bit different and interesting.
I'm really excited about that. And before I say this, I want to make sure everyone knows we're not sponsored or anything, but as far as mock drafts, if you really, every year I look for where to make my mock drafts, and I don't like places that make you pay or all that kind of stuff. It's called sticktothemodel.com. And it's mock drafts. You can be a GM. I was able to go in there, extend TJ Watt, and then use that to it's really in depth, really, really cool. So I'll be using that as we move forward.
Cool.
So if anyone
Yeah.
keep up, stick to the model.com. So because
Yeah.
I don't have my own mock draft thing, but yeah, if you guys know any games that you think might be fun or something that you're like, it's the off season, let's do something fun during the void. Let us know in the chat or whoever, because this is our second off season, so we're gonna kind of hit our stride.
Yep. We appreciate it if you joined us tonight. Do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can find both of us on X, and you can follow us both there. If you're catching this after the fact, do us a favor and drop us a comment. Let us know your kind of way too early predictions and what your off-season goals are for the team. We want to hear from you, and we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Leanne and Zach would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.